Everyone goes through changes, young people more than most. And when you are young and have a learning disability, planning your future, which can be hard at any time, sometimes seems like an impossible task. The Highland Person-Centred Planning Group came together in 2004 to reshape the way children and young people in transition are helped to plan their own future. It brought together ARC Scotland, the Shirley Project, Career Scotland, Social Work and Education, all committed to making PCP fundamental to helping young people with a learning disability move on with their lives. 4 years later, this conference, supported by ARC Scotland, drew together examples of person-centred planning tools from the Highlands and the rest of Scotland to promote the PCP approach.
And I'm the head top chairman for this meeting, and thank you for coming to hear us speaking, and thank you.
If we talk about PCP and person-centred planning, for example, we sometimes think we know what it means, but for some people it's merely a set of initials, and for others it's just a title, and we need to be, again, very clear about that kind of definition. I'd just like to read you something, if I may, about person-centred planning. Person-centred planning, and this is flowery language as well, is a process designed to assist someone to make plans for their future. It is used most often as a life planning model to enable individuals with disabilities or otherwise requiring support to increase their personal self-determination and improve their own independence. You will see some really good examples of that today in the workshop, so please bear that definition in mind. I'd also like to mention, yes, here we go. Person-centred planning can have many effects that go beyond the making of plans. It can create a space during which someone who is not usually listened to has central stage, and I want to see that as an important tenet, if you like, of today. I would like at this point to introduce Gillian Newman, who's going to talk on It's My Journey. Thank you very much.
Person-centred planning has one very simple principle, that every person must be the starting point for planning, support or guidance concerning their future lives.
It's My Journey is a report that was written about the journey from children's services into adult services of 44 young people with a range of support needs. I produced a report about inclusion in 2005, and children and young people in that study found transition difficult at all sorts of different stages, whether that was early on or even just moving from P3 to P4 in a different room and a different teacher, but also that significant transition at the end of children's services. And Zoe wrote a letter to heads of service about what she thought ought to happen with her transition. And out of that came something called Zoe's Charter. And Zoe's Charter, Zoe looked at the way that she thought things ought to work. And then she said, well, actually what her experience was, and then what she thought it would need to do to make it better. And that's how the whole report of It's My Journey is laid out. And I do feel for somebody with complex disability like Zoe has, that bit in the middle about apology was really the way things were. You know, you were sort of expected to be grateful for a place at college, even if it wasn't the course you were particularly interested in. So what happened next? Well, Maria and I got together and thought, well, we need to do something. And the key thing that we thought was, well, actually, we need to listen to young people. They're the people who are in transition. They know what it's like. But we also recognised that to bring about significant change, you need to involve all the agencies. So we were keen from the beginning to involve as many people as we could. So we got together as many partners as we could, and we came up with what was called the Vision for Transition. And the thing that we wanted for young people was, if this is a journey, we wanted to find out, were they in the driving seat or were they just passengers and somebody else was making the decisions? We also wanted to know, were they getting the right sorts of opportunities, the things that recognise their abilities and skills, and the right information to find those. But we wanted the young people to be driving this process, so we had themes that they told their story around instead of worded questions. So in terms of being inclusive, we certainly wanted as wide a range of sport meets as we could, but we also recognised transition isn't a one-off event. You know, you have your last day at school and then you start something else in September. It actually happens over a few years. So we wanted to include young people who were at all sorts of different stages of that process. So we actually had young people from about 14 to about 22 took part. And we thought that's what we want to do. We want to offer young people lots of different ways of taking part and of telling their story. So we were offering things like they could do a one-to-one interview if they wanted. They could do it over MSN or email. They could do, like Zell and Master Chief, they could make a slideshow, or they could take photographs and just write about them. They could write their story. 2 or 3, well, 6 of them actually made videos in the end about their story. So they got to choose how they took part. Now, when Master Chief left school, and he was kind of asked to leave school because they said they didn't really have anything else to offer him, he had no plan in place at all, and he thought he might have been given an application documents for college, but he couldn't really remember. And in the end, he was actually at home with his mum for a year before they managed to get him a placement in college, a supported placement doing computing.
I have been meeting in the hotel, and here I was over there here and ha ha ha. It's not there.
Sing me a love song.
Well, I mean,
Suppose it's just a pets now.
it's here. I know to worry.
We produced this report, which we thought, well, we hope it helped the guidelines, but actually a bit more than happened. It actually influenced the actual protocol, the policy and the procedure that was written, and all the heads of service have signed up to that. To evaluate it, we obviously took it back to the young people who were involved to see what they thought of it. It's a living document. There's bits at the back kind of, that other young people who found the document helpful, they can contribute their story to it. There were missing voices. It wasn't just vision impairment and only one from hearing impairment. There were other missing voices that we maybe hadn't managed to include. And it was a snapshot. It was a one-off look 1 year, and the recognition that it was an ongoing thing we had to keep going back to. But one thing they all said, and that they felt very positively about, was it put the young person right at the centre. It was their unique perspective, and that was the most important thing. Thank you very much.